Good morning, y'all. It's Monday. I promised you that I would be making bread pudding today, so I'm going to do it. This is my grandma's recipe that my brother actually sent to me. He got it, I think, from my mom. Anyhow, I've been looking for it. Couldn't remember anything about the exact measurements of things. I kind of had an idea of what was in it, but just didn't know the exact measurements. So anyhow, I have saved some biscuits from Bob eating them. So, and you can see they're not huge biscuits, so I'm going to be putting about 8 of them in the bowl. I've already started crumbling some of them up, but you just crumble them into little pieces so that they'll soak up all the juice and the goodie that we're going to put in here. I remember my grandmother making this. She made it practically every week, just whenever she had leftover biscuits, because she was cooking. She was one of those that cooked bread at every meal, so she always either had leftover cornbread or leftover biscuits. But anyhow, she would make this, and then I remember my granddaddy Hobson, he would eat it, and I mean it would be cold, like either sitting out on the counter cold or even in the refrigerator. But he would cut it into slices because it's not really like what I would call a pudding. It's just something that's solid enough you could just cut it into slices. And then, of course, back then they didn't have microwaves to heat it up, so he'd just be eating it cold. Sometimes he'd pour cream over it or have berries with it, but anyhow, it's good. I remember just picking it up and just taking a bite like that, and just picking it up with my hands. So it's definitely not pudding. I think it's misnamed. I don't know what you would call it, but it's not a pudding. But anyhow, I've just about got this last one crumbled up now. So, and all you do is you mix everything together, and then you let it set for a while until all the juice is absorbed into the bread. Now this is 3/4 of a stick of butter that I'm going to just pour over all of it. Can't beat that for goodiness. And then there's a whole cup of sugar that goes in it. And a teaspoon of vanilla. This is what makes it so yummy. Whoop, well, a little bit more won't hurt. And then 2 eggs. And like I said, we always crack our eggs in a separate little dish because we don't want any shells or wound up with a bad egg or something and going into our mixture. So, all right, so there's 2 eggs in there. And that called for a cup of milk, but wouldn't you know, when I looked in the refrigerator, we had no milk. I have buttermilk and I have half and half. So I'm taking some half and half and I'm going to thin it out a little bit so that it's more like milk. So I'm gonna put about maybe 3/4 of a cup of the half and half, and then I'll just add some water to thin it out a little bit. So that it's more the consistency of milk. Oh, I think I can add a little bit more. Didn't quite get it to the top. There we go. It's going to need all this liquid. And quite frankly, I don't remember my grandmother ever even measuring anything. She just would pour it in until it looked right. But at some point, somebody must have done some measuring in order for me to have this recipe. So anyhow, you just stir all this together, this wonderful goodiness here, and we're just going to let it set until the bread gets really softened from this. And you can see, I think you can see how that's just kind of sloppy gooey. Gooey's good, right? Okay, so I'm just gonna let that set probably for about, I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes until I know it's absorbed good. And then we will put it in the oven and bake it. And I'll be preheating the oven in the meantime. I'll be back with y'all in a little bit. Okay, I'm back. I got to looking at it. It wasn't quite soupy enough as I recall how it used to be. So I added another half a cup of the milk, and I also added another fourth of a stick of butter. So it wound up being a whole stick of butter and a cup and a half of the milk. So now I have buttered a casserole dish. And I'm just going to put this right in it. All right. And then just spread it out. Really good. Now the oven is preheated to 350. I'm going to put it in here and bake it for about 30 minutes until it feels a little bit more set. You can see how right now when I shake that it's kind of juicy. When it gets firm, it'll be done. I don't know about y'all, but I like to taste my dough and batter and stuff before I put it in the oven, and I tasted this and it tasted just like Grandma's, so I cannot wait for it to come out. So I'll get back with you in just a little while. Hey y'all, I'm back. It cooked for exactly 30 minutes. I took it out of the oven. You can see it's not jiggly anymore at all. And I actually took a knife and cut a slice out of it. I want you to see how it looks. And it is delicious. I want you to see. That butter and vanilla. Oh my gosh. Definitely not on my diet plan, but I will probably eat this little piece. And I'll just be eating a salad or something for dinner. Anyhow, it's really good. Great way to use up some leftover biscuits if you have some, or if you just want to make some so you can have leftover and be able to make this. It's really good. And I don't know if y'all like to do, like I love looking back through old cookbooks, and I've just started doing that. I've got tons of old cookbooks that I've inherited over the years, and I'm going to be making some of those dishes because, you know, those old cooks, they knew what they were doing, and they didn't have microwaves, they didn't have, you know, all these fancy things that we have nowadays, but they did some mighty good cooking. So I'm going to try to do a lot of those recipes coming up real soon. Anyhow, love y'all. Have a great day.